Okay, a little housekeeping. I set a video out this morning, as some of you may have seen. It rather challenged the American information media, or whatever intelligence media, or whatever they call it. And the idea was, for my part, was to respond because I had a whole bunch of folks that had commented on my channel and are subscribers who said, well, gee, now that Q has been totally discredited, discounted, and disavowed, what are we going to do now? And so the question then was, that I had, was whether or not Q was going to post after having been supposedly outed, to see what it said, and secondly, what it might say, what Q might say as to the charges and the rest of that, and also what the network was doing, the internet was doing, YouTube. And I ended up determining that because Q responded and because of the response and the content of it, initially, that is this morning, that we are still in the hunt, and that the disinformation of the network, the media folks, the AIM folks, is probably just that. It's disinformation. And the more that I look into it and the farther I go and the more I look at the linkages and the attachments and the seriousness with which the hyperbole and shrill pointing at the SES like it's the whole network makes me wonder whether or not we're supposed to be distracted. And so then we get Webb gets dragged into it, and Goodman gets dragged into it, and others are getting dragged into it, and people are all being called shills and receiving money from these deep state folks, and the SES is wading in, and if you're not with me, you must be SES, and on and on and on. And of course, it's a total distraction. So I'm not going to go any farther on it because my job here is to stay on the big picture. My job is to look at us as American citizens and look at the predicament we're in, and to stay away from, as much as we can, the disinformation. And my only reason for calling out what looks to me to be disinformation is that when we look at ourselves as a group and that we're cohesive and that we're all together, if there are obvious intentional undermining going on, then that's not part of the group, is it? So this afternoon, Q has posted again, and it is both interesting what it posts, and also it is, I think, quite articulate as to the issue that we talked about this morning. So let me spend a little time on it, and let's see if we can sort through this and get some more fine-tuned information. So we start with 972, and we end up with, 975. So the big one is 972, and here we are going again. Fox News says that the Inspector General is going to investigate more of the FISA stuff and the FISA abuses, and that at the urging of Sessions and others, the whole FISA investigation, which includes Carter Page, it includes how they got into it, includes the Russian woman who was meeting with Donald Jr., it includes all the encouragements, the request for the authorization to use the FISA warrants, and to look at the abuses. And of course, the people who abused it include the Department of Justice and Comey and Mueller and the rest of that bunch before. So, and that's been ongoing for years. And there were signatures onto those FISA requests for extending those FISA requests, I think, 4 times. So if it all gets investigated, it will not only go into whether or not there was serious misuse of the FISA courts, but also whether people were not only have minor disingenuousness about what they posted, but also looking at the source of the information that was given to the FISA court, who pays for the information and why they paid for the information, and why they felt they needed to pay for the information in order to send it to the FISA court. The Q posting goes through Google, Amazon, Twitter, Facebook, and says worldwide these folks are tracking, and they're tracking actively, and that they're data sharing, and that they've used data, and that it is used for, the question. It's a question, a Socratic question, but it's obviously being used for intel. It's being used to track us all. So what Snowden said to us years ago was that the NSA was tracking us and using a bunch of information, and now we find out, and we are going to find out, that all of these so-called benefits that we're getting on the internet, that are apps on our phones and that are selling us stuff, are being used, if not are being formulated, but are at least being used by these agencies that are basically spying on us all the time. So I've teased about the fact that they know what size of underwear and what color we like, but that's not an exaggeration. So the profile that they get on each of us is infinitely finely granulated, and we'll talk at the end about how that gets used. So it gets used for what? Let's put that off. Kickbacks big time. So in effect, what we're seeing is that these agencies and the corporations are giving Google and Twitter and the rest of that huge amounts of money, and not only that, but government contracts as well. So we've got is it Amazon, I think, that is getting huge contracts from the CIA for clouds and the rest of this kind of thing. So they're feeding into and out of the process. Amazon, of course, is linked with NASA and with the private space program. And so we're giving kickbacks through other agencies and other parts in order to get these guys' cooperation, get the media to give us the stuff, the net. So bypass regulations and laws, and of course it does. You don't need a FISA warrant if the information you get is from Facebook or Amazon or Google. The people in effect give it up freely. And so we have all kinds of things about and with the cell phones, about where the people are, their GPS, their tracking, their income, their deposits, their bank accounts, what they buy, what they sell, where they go, where they vacation, and all of that's there without having to pay anybody to spy on us. So the magnitude of it, yeah, it's huge. Is it a constitutional crisis? Well, look, it infringes upon our right to privacy. It fundamentally violates the fact that we are supposed to have a warrant for a search warrant or an authorization for the wiretap and the rest of the stuff. So because we are on the net, according to these so-called private companies, we've waived all of those rights. And now they're saying, well, you waived it all, so we can do anything we want to, including give it to the CIA or the NSA or the Department of Justice or the FBI or military or foreign agencies for that matter. What tells you that they aren't selling it to foreign agencies? So who can you trust? Who is organized? How do the social media search engine platforms weigh elections? Well, this is a whole nother piece. And the piece of this is that if you set up the algorithms and play with what news is being given, what characterizations of different candidates are being given, what is most prominent for people to look at, what is considered newsworthy. If you play with all of that, and not only that, if you say that the polls say so-and-so is ahead and so-and-so is behind, which of course the mainstream media did all the way through 2016, and to try to get people to think that Hillary was going to win easily, when you play with those, you change the way people vote. When you tell somebody this person's the winner, people tend to pick the winner. I don't, but most people tend to pick the winner because they want to be on the winning side, and they also intuitively think that because that person is preferred by a majority of people, then that person must also be the crowd mentality. That person must also be the better candidate. And they have been warping and playing with this stuff. And I disclosed that there's a guy here in Arizona that actually does tracking and compares polls with actual voting, and also is able to check through that how the predictions ahead of time, how the tracking polls, and how the election itself has been played with or marginalized. So yes, they're doing it big time, and it's ongoing. So it also talks about why is Hussein traveling all over the world, and there is one of the deals is that they're talking about the fact that he is on a worldwide tour in March. He's been in Singapore, he's been in New Zealand, he's been in Australia. He does these public events, and he meets, of course, with the prime ministers and presidents of the various countries. And the question then is, what is he doing there, and how is he trying to influence the way these people go? I mean, it's really easy to say that he went both before and after Trump did, and he's going there again now. And so the question is he trying to reinforce what these people told him they would do? Some of the people that follow my channel say that, for instance, the Prime Minister, Mr. Turnbull, is a big banker boy, and so he might well be on the dark side of things and inclined to listen to Obama more than he would listen to somebody else anyway. So that's the bulk of that. And we also get to this, to the arrest that was recently done. Let me see if I can get that stuff up. But the arrest is of a guy named, what the heck is his name? Raniere. And Raniere, I'm not sure I'm spelling it right, is a guy named Keith Raniere, who is the co-founder of Nixivm, or something like NXIVM, and that he was caught in Mexico and is now going to be charged or indicted in Texas, and that this guy was a cult leader who was branding women and treating them as slaves, doing basically an MK Ultra kind of thing onto him, psychological warfare, and that Friday the federal agents raided his home, a home of a Nancy Salzman in Oregon Trail, according to the Albany Times, and that over the years this Nixivm has attracted a following of including award-winning actress Allison Mack, and that Raniere is also getting payments from Claire Bronfman, an heiress to the Seagram's liquor fortune. So supposedly Bronfman is paying $65,000 per flight for this Raniere to be traveling around. So here we go again with sex trafficking and sex slaves, and or pimping, and or perhaps pedophilia, although there's nothing in there about that. So the question then is, I mean, I think as awful and as evil as this stuff is, it may end up being the hinge pin by which things unfold. So that's great stuff. So the next, let's go to, if I can ever get to it, the next posting, which is 973, and it says that the Code Monkey was locked out of the great, what is it called, Awakening, and which is where Q was alternately posting, that supposedly had a private posting site, and basically Q tells us that that has been totally compromised. Q also says that this is a worldwide situation. It is a foreign, not domestic thing, and that they're going to take a new approach to this and create a new board, and that will happen pretty soon. And that's also 974, which basically goes into the same thing. They're going to kill the old private site that Q had. Q is posting this on the public board. And then there is an anonymous 975, which is the final one, there is this anonymous posting that says Sessions is a CIA agent, and that there are a whole bunch of other CIA agents, that Sessions, Mueller, Comey, Wray, Gowdy, Obama, Hillary, Rosenstein, Schultz, Wan brothers, etc., Jockstrap McStain, of course, Lindsay, Little Boy Graham, Little Pillsbury Doughboy Graham, Harry Reid, who is the retired now Nevada senator, and we're all clowns in America agents of the banking cartel trying to take America down. And then at the bottom of it says scumbag Sessions and fake Q were just exposed the other day by American intelligence media. Huh, really? And that's all according to this Anon. So the Anon is basically putting this up as a question, and at the end questioned it, not making it a statement, but questioned it. And to that Anon posting, Q responded and said, "You failed. You failed." So what I would say to this, because it relates to a whole bunch of postings and a whole bunch of drops and people making all kinds of assertions and trying to put a certain kind of face on the process, is that what they end up with is this stuff real information or is it fake information? And the answer, according to the Q that is posting today, is you failed. So my challenge to the American intelligence folks, if that's what you really are, is look, tell us who Q1 is, tell us who Q2 is, tell us who this Q is this Q squared or somebody else? What are the motives of each of these, and why are you unable to out these guys? Why would they come in behind each other, as you have claimed, and continue to give us information which goes both historically and currently, and is intimately interwoven with the trappings of what Trump is doing, both with respect to travel and meetings and Twitter and videos and that kind of thing. So how do these multiple Qs that the AIM folks describe, how does that weave into the process of having a Q there at all? And what I'm going to say to you is, it doesn't look like it weaves very well. So whether you believe Q or not, the logic of outing Q the way that the AIM folks did doesn't make any sense. I mean, hey, Mr. Cryptographer, you can make sense of little scripts, the Quatrains, but let's take a look at the big picture. And how do you fit that big picture in with what it is that we're getting? And my proposition is that Q may or may not be real, but you haven't told us why not. Nothing that you have said is true about why not. I guess I said I was not going to say any more about it, but it obviously, this goes to the heart of the issue that I posted this morning, which is, where are we and how does that fit into the process? And what I would say to you is that if there is anything that shows up, any more that shows up other than information related to public stuff, is that we have a real queue and we have a real process. Forgive the dogs. So if you like this, give it a thumbs up. I'm trying to get it out as quickly as possible. I'm not going to dig down in the minutia of it. It really doesn't matter what this is and what that is, I don't think, because in the greater perspective, the question is, are we being spoken to by insiders that are close to the president, and is it going to make any difference? That's my issue. And are we going to help support it? And even if it's not real, how are we going to support ourselves? Because after it all, it is we, the people. Thanks so much.